Okay, I think we are live. Okay, good morning, everybody. I'd like to introduce you to Sush Bastola from UpSkill Digital. We're delighted to have him here. Really, one of the main things which we've learned out of this period, and it's come from the council survey as well, has been the issue of digital skills and what does this actually mean? How do we use it to stay competitive? It's quite a complex area. Some people know quite a bit, some people don't. But I do think for the sort of next period of time, how we use digital skills is going to be a key player in how we actually revitalize the economy and our own businesses. So welcome, Sush, and I will love you and leave you, and we'll catch up a little bit later. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you very much, Forbes. Hi, everyone. I don't know if you can hear me, but I hope you can. My name is Sush, as Forbes just mentioned, and I am the Partnerships Manager at UpSkill. So let's start with who are UpSkill. Now, we're a virtual training and transformation agency who have worked with the companies, as you can see right there. And what we do is we create bespoke training experiences for employees, for leaders to really understand the new ways of working, whether it be in the online sphere or the presentation and sales sphere. We have courses for everyone. Now, well, here's a bit more about us. Now, we have trained over 300,000 people worldwide with over 100 programs in 20 countries. And that's all handled and really completed by our expert roster of coaches with over 240 in locations worldwide. Now, the focus for this session, obviously, as I'm sure quite a lot of you are aware, we have been going through a global pandemic. And to start with, I'm going to be talking about how that's affected business, as I'm pretty sure most of you are really aware. From there, we look into how to build a learning culture within your businesses. And as a starting point, what we do at UpSkill is perform what we call a skills gap analysis. And what I'll be helping you do is figuring out how you can do that for your own business. And at the end, we'll have a slight recap. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them into the chat. And hopefully, if I have time at the end, I'll try and answer anything that I can. So COVID-19 has had, obviously, a major impact on business, with over 66% of businesses already using the government's job retention scheme and 21% of the workforce being furloughed. Bringing up to that, 38% of L&D departments have faced budget cuts, and of those 38%, 58% have actually seen their budgets shrink by more than 75%. Now, although coronavirus has forced our hand, what it has done is really bring to the forefront of everyone's mind that the online sphere is even more important than we thought before. So businesses are obviously having to go through radical changes to survive and thrive. And these are the 3 steps that people have really, that businesses have really, that we've seen have been able to change and redirect the way that they look at things. Obviously, the first is the response mode. Now, the response mode is that survival mode that I know a lot of businesses have gone through, wherein you've had to think on your feet about how you're going to change, about how you're going to, let's say, sell virtually, how you're going to do proposals virtually, how you're going to be able to engage with your customers all virtually. And you had to do, and businesses had to do that very, very quickly. Now, the steps to actually move forward are the important ones. As we're further and further out of the COVID period, I touch wood when I say that, but as we come further out of this period, how are businesses going to redirect the learning from that crisis and that survival mode into shaping and really preparing for, and I hate to use this term, the new normal? So what UpSkill have realized is that a lot of businesses are really pushing for a bounce forward mentality. Now, that brings up the first poll question I have. How will you empower your workforce to bounce forward? And if on the side you can see, I've launched a poll if you'd like to just answer, it'd be really interesting to see what your thoughts are on this. I've got 3 options for you. You can build a stronger support structure for the workforce. You focus on your leadership and their skills and their mindsets, or do you build a clear and post-COVID learning plan for the future workforce? I'm just going to wait for your answers and then hit you with what my thought is. Fantastic. We're seeing quite a lot of support for building a post-COVID learning plan and also building a stronger support structure for the workforce. Okay. Interesting. Well, I mean, thank you for the people who responded. And I just like to say all 3 are correct. Now, that wasn't who said all 3? Marie Peters, who said all 3? You're absolutely correct. It is all 3 are essential to really, really empowering the entire workforce to bounce forward. The focus on the leadership, of course, this isn't just a bottom-up approach or a top-down approach. It's for everyone. So leadership have to focus on the skills as well as the frontline staff. If leadership don't focus on the skills, what you're left with is a feeling of imposter syndrome. And you don't want leadership to feel like that. Leadership should be, as the title states, the leaders. But great, it was great to see some great answers there. And Marie, thank you for hitting that on the first time. Okay, so what I'm going to delve into next is how do you build the learning culture? I'm going to focus on option number 3 of the poll, how to really build a learning culture. Now, learning is actually more in demand now than ever before. These are some LinkedIn stats that I thought were, really, really interesting. With 71% of businesses having experienced an increased demand for virtual learning from their end users, and 56% of businesses actually agreeing that their culture of learning is stronger now than before. Now, those stats don't seem to match up with what I said earlier with regards to 38% of L&D budgets being cut. But what it shows is that end users and normal employees and staff have a hunger and a thirst for learning, and that will be the same within your businesses too. Now, how do you really get that process started if you've never had a learning culture before? Your learning culture has been, say, disjointed and not fluid. You start with a launchpad. Now, there are a lot of other companies out there which I'll actually go into further later that you can leverage the skills the skills launchpads and the frameworks that they have. And it's kind of interesting that 53% of the UK employee populations do not actually have the essential skills that are required for the future of work. Now, as we can see from the COVID period, the acceleration of everything being online, virtual, and futured, I don't even know if that's a word, but it kind of makes sense, has been crazy. We're all doing virtual meetings. I mean, this is the first event that I've spoken at that has been through just purely virtually, where I can't see people's faces and really, work off the body language that I'm getting. So all these new changes can really, they start with the foundational skills. And I'll go into at the end some of the programs that you can really, really leverage for your businesses. And this is crucially important in regards to how to implement work cycle. Now, we start with the skill gap analyses. That's something that I'll delve further into a bit more detail, because that is the crucial first step for every business to take to really understand where the gaps are. From there, you can define your target audience and you build out the learning path, and then you start piloting the programs. And from the pilot, again, you assess, you adapt the program, and then you go back into another skill gap analysis to really figure out where the gaps lie in the program you just ran. Because it's crucial to understand that the skills gap analysis, that first step, is the most important step. So, there we go. For a skill gaps analysis, now the first step is to plan the analysis. Now, that might be whether it's what tools and communication platforms you're using. It's really about how to get the data that you need to really have that final step in play, that building a learning plan. Now, skills gap analysis is a tool to really find out exactly where the gaps lie for each and every employee. So this will go straight into your business plans and your business prospects for the future. With the future goals that you may have in place, once you plan that analysis, you can have all that bits of data into that, and then you start to identify the critical and future skills. The critical skills could be the current skills that you need, or, for example, the future skills. Will you need to upskill your sales team on how to effectively virtually pitch? Will you need to be able to use data more effectively for customer engagement? What skills, at that point, you start thinking about what skills do you value as a company? What skills do your employees need to do their jobs well now and in the future? And from there, you can measure those skills. You can measure the current skills that you already have. You do that through surveys and assessments. You do that through interviews with your frontline employees, your team leaders. You can use feedback from performance reviews. What's essential is actually accruing all of that data into one area where you can see, right, here's the gaps for the sales team. Here's the gaps for our marketing team. Here's the gaps for our accounts team. Our operations team don't have these skills. And from there, you build a learning plan. You can each individual will have a different learning plan. And that's where your team leaders and your leadership are essential, because the frontline and the staff who may not be in that managerial or leadership position will be looking up at the leaders and the managers as mentors in this. So it starts with the top, I have to say. So you have to bring together all the data that you have and really put forward that learning plan. So how do you help your employees to foster a learning journey? Now, once you have that clear sense of what your current gaps are and where you want to be in the future, you need to be able to encourage and support your team through their upskilling. Firstly, ensure you have a frequent engagement plan. Now, obviously, that depends on topic to topic, but it has to be frequent. Like, for example, I've said that on number 3, have weekly team calls that are solely just for learning. Solely a time where everyone can talk about what they learned in the last week. Get that peer-to-peer engagement. Make everyone feel empowered by the learning. Make them think, even if you gamify it, where you incentivize the person who's got, the highest marks on this assessment gets a £20 Amazon voucher. Little things like that can really help foster both that competitive human spirit that we all have and that need and necessity to learn. And also, one thing that I believe has been very important, especially during this time, is to assign and find out who your champions are. Who are the people where technology comes second nature to them? Who are the people that you can really boost up into these mentors, have them feel empowered by the company? And there's always a big thing of people sometimes feel scared when, not scared, but maybe afraid, maybe unsure of listening to people come in from another company or a training company or etc. to tell them what they're doing wrong or how they have to change. Whereas if you can find that champion within your company, that peer-to-peer learning really can bring out knowledge in people that you may never have expected it from. So it's really crucial to ensure that you have a few champions in play who people can go to, and maybe they're doing these courses that you've created, so that people can go to and not feel afraid to really reach out and ask for help, because that can sometimes be an issue when, let's say, it's leadership that people have to go to for help. No one wants to feel like they're stupid, or no one wants to feel as though they're not on the same level as their peers. So if you have someone who is, already in that peer group, they're the people that you really want to push to the forefront to make sure that everyone has someone to talk to in regards to the learning process. Now, barriers to learning. This again is quite crucial, because what you notice throughout anywhere is that every different set of employee group, whether it be frontline staff, whether it be managers, leaders, they all have their own barriers to learning. So it's crucial that you help each and every employee be motivated. And how do you get motivation? You help them to see what the value add is from this learning. And that goes straight into the next point of relevance, because people will be more motivated if the content and what they're actually learning is relevant for their role, is relevant for their career progression, is relevant for what the business wants in the future. You see a lot of companies really, a lot of larger companies especially, put forward these large scale LMS platforms that have these buffets and incredible amounts of content for people to learn, but without it being relevant to each and every role, people don't really, as goes to the last one, if people are spending all this time on learning and there's no immediate benefit to their role, then they start petering out. So you have to make sure that it's relevant and motivating material. And that another crucial thing is access. Now, a lot that we've noticed over the COVID period is that companies may not have, let's say, laptops to go out to people, or employees may not have the right internet connection. And for that, again, so you don't make your employees feel as though they're separated, or that, or they feel less than their worth because maybe they don't have a good broadband connection, post it to them. Print it out, post out print out the relevant things, post it to them. Just make sure that each and every one of your employees has the right access to learning. It's crucial. And again, time. Now, people, especially my generations, we're all about instant gratification. I hold my hand up to that. It's very true. If I say I want something from, one of my team members, I want it 5 minutes ago, and that's terrible. But it's something that is part of human nature now. So you need to be able to show how, if they spend time on this work, on this learning, instead of, let's say, 20 minutes they could have spent on one sales call or two sales calls, how will that give them immediate benefits? So you need to be able to really show your employees that, yeah, this content that I've made relevant to you, accessible to you, and motivational for you is going to be really, really pointedly beneficial to you and your role going forward. And also another thing to do with time and the understanding of the online space and how to use these skills effectively is that these skills, at the crux of it, will make your life easier, whether it be through automating certain processes that your business has been doing for 20 years through pen and paper. If you can automate that process, then you make your account manager have that extra half an hour, whether it be, let's say during COVID, whether it be to spend with their children, go outside for a longer walk, spend more time with their pets. It's all about showing that value add even for their time. So here are some core elements to consider during the transition that you make towards that learning culture. Content. Content is king. You hear it, or queen, sorry. Content is crucial, I'll say. Does the content take them on a journey? Is it a story that needs to be told where you can really make them aware that this story and this journey and this progression through the content is crucial for them and their progression? It needs to have that alignment, and again, I hate to use these the terms, but that sync between your business and your employee. Now, facilitation. Facilitation, it's about how you actually facilitate that content, how you provide that content to those. Does it evoke that connection that I talked about from the content side of things? How is, say for example, you do it via a virtual instructor-led training program. How is the expert that is coaching your team? Do they evoke a connection? Are they telling it as a story that you want to be told? Are they relaying these messages to your business and your business goals, because these things are crucial. The platform, obviously, I am aware that a lot of you already have potentially, internal platforms. You have your Slack, you have your MS Teams. You can leverage those in great detail, and I will go into that a bit further on. And lastly, but nowhere near least, is the learner experience. Now, we've heard everyone talk about UX, user experience. Now, LX in this day and age is just as important, because everyone's learning, whether it be your grandma learning how to use Skype on her phone or FaceTime on her phone, all the way up to someone finally learning how to send a GIF on Slack, let's say. These are all learning processes, and the learner experience and the learner experience in these processes is crucial, so that people do feel engaged and do feel as though, you know what, this is going to help my job, this is going to help my life. And once you nail all four of these elements of the transition, the learning will stick. Whether it be virtual or in person or e-learning, if you can nail these four elements, the learning will stick, and you will see your employees feel empowered, not just by what you're providing them, but what that they can provide for you as a business. So here's some do's and don'ts in regards to the journey to embedding learning. Now, again, I've kind of covered these, but as a little recap, let's say, prioritize your modules strategically. Again, by team, different modules, different timings. Maybe you're about to integrate Office 365 in the future, in the next like 3 months. You don't want that first training about Office 365 to be, to start next week. Because what will happen is they'll get to actually having Office 365 3 months down the line, and they won't know, they'll have forgotten how to utilize it. Always find creative ways to engage. Now, there's a lot of places out there that are doing micro-learning on your phone. Like I say, incentivization is fantastic. Gamification is something that you'll start hearing all over the place. And it's one of those things where it really goes down to that fundamental aspect of human nature of, I want to beat that guy next to me. So I want to be, how is she doing better than me? On the next quiz, I'm going to make sure I do better because I want that £25 Amazon voucher. Breaking up your training into shorter modules. Now, everyone's got webinar fatigue, right? Everyone's been, thinking about, oh my God, when will this guy stop talking? I've spent 2 hours in this webinar, this, that, and the other. So break it up into shorter modules. Make it easy to digest. Upskill your champions. Now, I mentioned champions earlier. They're the people who technology comes second nature to them, and other people in your company aren't afraid to reach out to. And update your assessments. Technology changes, software changes, the way we utilize things changes. For example, if I create an assessment based on, for my team to complete on effective ways of presenting, that's going to have been completely changed now that we're not presenting in person. So it's little things like that. And on the don'ts, never assume all your learners are tech savvy. And obviously, we probably learned that all the hard way during COVID. But it's something that a lot of companies still tend to do, is that they assume that their learners can just go onto a platform and start learning. That's not how it works. Each person is different. Each person learns in different ways, and each person is able to use tech in different ways, which goes again back to the champions that I mentioned. Don't rely on the same facilitators or the same facilitation platforms. Always do things differently. People are scared of change, but they also love that little bit of change as well that actually brings them to, oh, that's exciting. Oh, that's really cool in that program. And again, as I start to use a one-size-fits-all approach, your teams are different, your people are different, the way they learn is different. So it's crucial that you make sure that the learning is different. Never rely on your resources to do all the talking for you. Your champion, your leadership have to be approachable in this learning process. People look up to leaders. They need to know that their leaders are there, and it's not just, oh, that's on that page of that slide, go read that slide. If someone has an issue with something, that could potentially affect your business goals. You sit down with them, you spend 10, 20 minutes, whether it be virtually, whether it be in the office when we go back, and really get to grips with what they're struggling with. It's important. And then you can have the resources there to back you up on the points that you make. So leveraging your internal platforms. Now, I saw a few people in the chat mention the likes of Slack, Trello, Asana, things like that. These are really, really fantastic collaboration platforms. As a Microsoft partner, we have rolled out so many Microsoft Teams trainings, and really it's always incredible to see how people can approach learning on these platforms. Now, for continuous learning to really be effective, you have to embed it into that daily, day-to-day workflow. So what we have at UpSkill is we have learning channels for different things, whether it be insightful articles, whether it be just a learning channel for each different team. So, hey, sales and marketing, what have we learned this morning? Hey, accounts, so what did we learn last week? It's always about, that engagement between your teams. And what we have as well is a weekly meeting where we'll talk about the things we've learned that week. And it's just a way of really getting people to grips with, oh, wow, they're learning about that. I wonder how that would really impact my role. And doing that through these unified communications platforms are fantastic. As you can see, 84% of L&D leaders now think that it's more important now to integrate learning into these unified communications platforms. Now, I mentioned earlier about programs that are out there already for your business to really be able to drive that scalable learning. Now, there's a few there that are incredible. They're free and they're easy ways to really begin taking that first step into making sure that your employees are not one of the 53% that I mentioned earlier that do not have the essential skills they need for the future of their jobs. Now, these are all fantastic programs. And if you'd like any more information on them, I have my contact details on the last slide. So yeah, please go ahead. But these are a great first step before you do the skills gap analysis that I mentioned earlier. So how have UpSkill helped our clients adapt? Now, these are things that I mentioned throughout this presentation. So for example, there's a housing association in London. What we did is we converted their quite lengthy trainings into bite-sized videos that people could just, go around and watch. Say, for example, you're walking the dog and you just fancied, oh, wow, there's a new video up. I'll watch that. A quick 3-minute video is better than, I'll say, a half an hour, 40-minute webinar. We changed these 1-day courses into 24 2-hour modules. Now, the modules for these are actually quite quite important learning areas for these housing associations, whether it be fire safety, things like that. So these are necessary to complete. But what they used to be is 1-day courses where people would sit in, a classroom throughout one day. But what we did is convert them into 2-hour modules instead. And for the freight company, for example, I believe someone just mentioned this in the chat. What we did is we created virtual train-the-trainer sessions for Microsoft Teams. So we helped them train their trainers on how best to approach Microsoft Teams as a training platform. Now, that's, it's a very new thing that we're doing, but obviously with COVID, this is going to be more and more and more important. But that's also very crucial when you find out who your facilitators are within your company or externally, is whether they can provide a learning experience over like Microsoft Teams, Zoom, events maybe. It's all about being able to provide a learning experience that's just as exciting as it would be if it was classroom-based. And what we also did there was point their employees to free pre-existing online content. Now, there's a lot out there, and that's something that, as leadership, or if you do have a digital champion, could be their role in finding out to actually provide to the employees within your company. Now, for a global hotel chain, that was a brand new onboarding program that had to be video, virtual, and was about safeguarding measures we had in place. in regards to the new normal again. And also we had remote leadership training, which I believe is crucial now more than ever. There's a lot of leadership out there that have been flummoxed by how to really engage their workforce, make sure they're working, make sure that, you know, everything's going to plan. But how do you manage a team when they're not in front of you? Now, that's something that I struggled with, I have to admit, right at the start of COVID, because I was used to teams being in and around me and enjoying the hustle, the bustle, the flow, people coming up to my desk saying, I need help with this, I need help with that. So how did I adapt? And that's, again, something that was very crucial for this global hotel chain and will continue to be so for even your business, for your businesses. Now let's recap. So how do you harness a learning culture? Firstly, adopting that bounce forward mentality that I first mentioned. All three of those points that I mentioned are crucial and will really help the entirety of your employee base and of your team to see your business goals and see where you want to be in the future and bounce forward to them. Secondly, identifying skills gaps. Now, that was obviously the crux of my talk, was the skills gaps analysis and how you really make reskilling and upskilling second nature, because it's already there within people. We learn in classrooms from, what, 6 to 16, 6 to 18, and then a further 3 years for some of us. And so we're so used to learning in that way. How do you make that pivot towards, whether it be virtual learning, e-learning, new ways of learning? You need to make that second nature. You need to make that intrinsic to your business goals. Thirdly, consider principles when integrating learning into your work culture. Like I mentioned earlier, it's all about having the correct principles, correct abilities to actually make your team, make your employees aware that learning is now part of your work culture, that you will be not just learning on the job, which is, again, something that a lot of us have had to do during our time. It's about making sure that when someone new comes into your company, you make them aware that learning is key, that learning is something that you do on a weekly basis, that learning is something that you do on a daily basis. And finally, you need to be able to foster that continual curiosity and leverage anything that you already have or free programs out there, because there's going to be a lot in the transformation space. Business transformation, how do you really push forward into the virtual space? How do you really go forward online? How do you sell your wares online? Maybe you've had a shop in Richmond for 20, 30 years, have never needed an online presence. So what platforms are out there to really get online? And how do you train your staff to be aware of that online? How do you really get them curious about, oh, so if I put this up on Shopify, how much of a cut does Shopify take? And how does, so how do we get this sent to that person's house? Do we use Royal Mail? Do we use FedEx, etc.? Or like, people are curious naturally. So you have to foster that and leverage that, and then leverage the platforms that you have going forward. So I think I still have some time left. So what I'm going to have to do now is go through some of the questions that you may have. So I'm just going to click on the chat. Also, I'd just like to say, if you do have any questions further to the next 10 minutes, please don't hesitate to send me a LinkedIn, send me an email. I'm very quite accessible on all these things. And obviously, our website is right there as well for you to have a quick peruse at what UpSkill actually do and how we're helping businesses in the space. I think it'd be great if I can really, let's see if there's any questions. What's your favorite task sharing tool for a small team of up to 10? For me personally, I use Trello with my marketing team. So it's with my sales and marketing team, because it's a visual way of being able to look at things. Now, Peter, you mentioned that an external peer group for the business owner is equally important. I can absolutely, because as I mentioned earlier on, that people have their own peer groups internally at their company. Sometimes leadership can feel as though that they have imposter syndrome when they're actually telling their people to, do this, do that, do the other, look at AI, look at ABMing, look at content marketing, look at SEO, things like that. But in the back of their minds, they're like, I don't quite understand that. So it is crucially important that for the business owner to have that external peer group where they can really go out and talk and really get to grips with what other business owners are struggling with in this space. Let's see if there's anything else. Okay, well, I mean, that seems to be most. Here we go. Can you recommend any good LMS platforms? Now, that's actually quite funny because in my last 2 weeks, I have been researching LMS platforms quite heavily, actually. And there are, I'm not going to say that I have any favorites. There are quite a few out there, but it, again, all depends on your exact needs. There are the likes of Collidus, Absorb, that are fantastic to look at and great content. But if you also, if you have specific content that you want creating, then again, I'd look at actual other companies and agencies that have content development arms. Because a lot of these LMS platforms actually just have overarching content. Now, overarching content is great for, for people here and there where it's just, let's say, fire regulations or health and safety or first aid. But when it actually gets down to the nitty gritty, you really want, as I mentioned earlier, content is king/queen. So you really want that content to be developed, with a skills gap analysis and an agency who have done it before, because you have to be careful with that. In terms of other LMSs, Docebo is a big one. Build Empire, quite a small little company up in Manchester that do everything very customized, which is fantastic. But if you have any further questions on LMSs, I want to discuss that. I don't want to. I know this isn't the BBC, and I've got to say everyone's names, but I think I've said a few right there anyway. Kirsty, does any of the training you offer lead to qualifications? At this moment in time, we don't have qualifications. We do provide certifications of completion at UpSkill. However, for qualifications, there are, it depends again on what qualifications you want. If you want, for example, marketing qualifications, I would go with the CIPD, I believe. I could be completely wrong on the acronym because there's quite a few out there. But fantastic. I can't see any further questions. But in the meantime, if you, like I say, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to really, answer them via LinkedIn or via my email address that are both on the page. Well, I mean, thank you so much for everyone taking part. It's great to see 111 people watching me do this for my first virtual keynote. But like I say, thank you again for all your time, and I look forward to hopefully conversing with some of you in the future. Have a great day. Bye-bye.